Welcome aboard the Zeven Provincien. She is available to be constructed and to be built via the Rotterdam Dockyard. So what's special about this new Tier 8 light cruiser? Well, first off, she's armed with 8 dual-purpose 152mm guns across 4 different turrets. She also has a repair party, as well as an engine boost consumable, along with the airstrike armament. Although the new airstrike armament that she comes with is slightly different than the standard Dutch airstrike. This new airstrike is actually a much more condensed and smaller version that is much more compact than you're used to on the other ones. These airdrop bombs are going to have a much smaller dispersion, and therefore the bombs are going to be much tighter on the target that you drop. So this is going to be a lot better if you're trying to drop a nose-in battleship or a cruiser, because this is increasing the likelihood that all the bombs are going to be hitting the target. But on the flip side, if the target is moving, because you have less dispersion, this is actually going to make it harder for you to time and hit the target accurately. But on the bright side, you do get 3 of these drops instead of this typical 2 that you would get on the actual tech tree line of the Dutch cruisers. She has a rather good rate of fire, coming in at 6.5 seconds per reload, as well as a decent firing range of around 16.2 kilometers of range. Another quirky feature is that she has 365-degree turrets, with pretty good turning radius time on those turrets. However, one drawback to the turrets is that they do not have the best firing angles, so if you're going to use that 365 ability, you're definitely going to be having to wiggle a bunch. For a light cruiser, she also has a very unique armor scheme, with a very thick layer of armor running a thin line around the waterline all around the ship, except for the nose. This leads to more of a nose-out sort of playstyle, where you actually want to have the rear of the ship pointed towards the enemy, since that's the beefiest part of the ship. You can deflect pretty large shells, especially for the tier, compared to other ships. These 152mm guns also have surprisingly good velocity for what the guns are. I was definitely expecting this to be more of a playstyle similar to an Atlanta, a Belfast, Flint, where it has a little bit more of an arch, floatier shells, hiding behind islands, able to have those steep angles to shoot over those islands. This is not the case. This is definitely something that if you do play an island, you will have to be pretty far back behind the island, and because you don't have a spotter plane, it's going to be kind of hard for you to do that. And because since you don't have that well of an armored nose, nosing in against an enemy cruiser or battleship will not fare the best for you in that situation. One thing that's kind of surprising to me is that actually Wargaming recommends that for a commander skill that you actually put IFHE on this ship. From my experience, putting IFHE on this ship has not helped at all. If anything, I would say that it's a detriment to the playstyle of this ship. Instead, you can take those 4 skill points and instead put them on something such as Concealment Expert, or something like Top Grade Gunner, which improves with the reload, or even something like the AA Defense and ASW Expert. All of those are pretty great choices other than IFHE. Despite the fact that the ship only has an 11% chance of fire, with the rate of fire that I was experiencing, I would say that the double amount of fire chance of not having IFHE is extremely important, because this ship will set fires if you do not have IFHE. When I had IFHE, I was basically having 0 fire, 1 fire games. But as soon as I took that off, it was a world of a difference, where I was getting around 10 fires per game, and so much more fire damage because of that. On the topic of commander skills, here's a breakdown of all the skills that I recommend for this ship specifically. First off, grease the gears. The turret rotation time is already pretty great on this ship, but with the added ability of having the 365, I think that you will notice that you will be wiggling in this ship a lot more than any other ship that you've probably played. So with that in mind, that 15% increase in turret speed I think will be a very strong help. Next, I will recommend for sure the Last Stand skill. I have noticed that my engine and rudder have gone out quite a bit in this ship. Next, I would probably recommend either Focus Fire Training, or I would probably go with Demolition Expert. Both of those are great options for the level 2 cost. Next, for the 3-point commander skills, I would definitely recommend Superintendent. Having that extra heal is really helpful. You can also go Survivability Expert, or you can go Heavy HE, which will definitely be my next heavy recommendation for this ship. My last and less preferred option at the 3-point cost skill level is the Adrenaline Rush skill. I've never been too fond of this skill for ships. I've always seen this as being a last resort. I just happen to have extra points and I don't know what to spend it on. And then finally, at the level 4 skill point level, like I mentioned, please stay away from IFHE. That was a very bad experience for me. Instead, I highly recommend something like Concealment Expert, or AA Defense and ASW Expert, or lastly, Top Grade Gunner. For ship upgrades, these are my recommendations. For slot 1, Main Armaments Modification 1. For slot 2, Engine Room Protection. For slot 3, Aiming Systems Modification 1. For slot 4, I would recommend Steering Gears Modification 1. And for slot 5, Concealment System Modification 1. Now that I've kind of gone over all the ship specifications, the modules, equipment, etc., now I'm going to actually shift into the actual results of actually playing the ship. I have played this ship for roughly 10 battles. I will go through the statistics of that, how I've been doing with this build thus far, as well as how the actual average of the community thus far, with those who have purchased the ship early, how they have actually been doing with the ship. So here is my personal performance in this ship so far with those 10 battles. I have only won 3 battles with this ship so far, with an average damage of 85,000. Average frags 1.6, and the planes destroyed doesn't really matter because carrier games are pretty sparse and random. This number could have been amazing, this number could have been horrible, and it really wouldn't have mattered either way. All in all, with only 10 battles played in this ship, and with only a 30% win rate, I'm actually really happy with the stats in this ship thus far, especially for Tier 8. As per usual, this brand new ship has very few battles played in it because of the limited access of people have to actually play the ship. And also, as usual, because of this limited access, the people who usually have access to the ship earlier rather than the other players do will usually perform much stronger than if the general population gets access to the ship first. Because of this, the average damage is quite inflated at this moment, as being the second highest damage cruiser at Tier 8. It also has the number 1 win rate at Tier 8 cruisers, coming in above the Congress, which is also another ship that's available in the premium shop, which again people would shill out money for, and therefore the people who are shilling out those money are typically already pretty good at the game and have an inflated stats anyway. So what do you guys think? Will this be worth it for you to go through those combat missions in the Dockyard to obtain the ship, with the addition of paying the doubloon pack to obtain the ship after that? For me, I would say yes. This ship is fun, it is unique, and it does feel different enough at Tier 8 that makes it worth it for me. And with that, I will wrap it up there. Have a good one, guys, and best of luck out there, captains.
Battleship destroyed. We've sunk an enemy destroyer.